Hello, my name is April Schweinhart, and I'm a part of the Training and Technical Assistance team working on the HRSA COP-RCORP initiative. The purpose of this video is to describe the organizational chart and overall structure of the Community of Practice Rural Community Opioid Response Program in Ohio. Our work focuses on addressing opioid use disorder and overdoses in Ohio. The Health Resources and Services Administration, known as HRSA, Community of Practice Rural Community Opioid Response Program, or COP-RCORP, has visualized the organization of our master consortium and each local consortia as a hub and spoke diagram. Included in this visual representation is a bit about the history of our consortia, the key strategies that make the master and local consortia work together, and acknowledgments of funding and support from external organizations like HRSA, the Ohio Department of Health, and the Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services Office. It may seem complex at first glance, but each visual element of color, shape, and placement have easy to understand meanings that this video will describe in further detail. To begin, let's start with the first circle at the top of the image. In 2018, the COP-RCORP Consortia came together through the Health Resources and Services Administration, HRSA, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Rural Communities Opioid Response Program. The planning phase of COP-RCORP lasted from 2018 to 2020, and then an additional $1 million helped COP-RCORP to continue through the implementation phase of the HRSA-RCORP program through 2022. Both funding opportunities and the source of this funding are listed in this top circle. Branching from the top HRSA-RCORP circle come the key next steps in the formation and organization of COP-RCORP. The Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, or PIRE, and Ohio University's Voinovich School for Leadership and Public Affairs. We'll call them OU. In this step, shape and color become meaningful. As shown, PIRE is represented by an aqua color, and OU by magenta here, and throughout the graphic. As you can see, both colors are connected to the RCORP planning and implementation funding in the top circle by braided lines. This represents how PIRE and OU submitted 2 applications for both the planning and implementation phases of COP-RCORP, and were thus able to braid their funding together to support further activities. Both PIRE and OU serve as evaluators and training and technical assistance providers for the local community consortia that make up COP-RCORP. To do so, PIRE and OU staff take an approach that's sometimes referred to as leading by convening. Neither organization is on the ground working directly to address opioid misuse prevention, treatment, or recovery. Rather, both partner with those who are directly implementing activities locally to increase opportunities for collaboration, operationalize key activities and concepts in preventing opioid misuse, and transform prescribed activities and requirements into action. Each individual community then has the power to implement shared activities in the way that best fits local context and culture. Now that we've covered the top half of the graphic, it is important to take a step back and acknowledge 2 parts of the chart. Firstly, the yellow line surrounding the body of the graphic represents state support surrounding the master consortia and each local consortia. The Ohio Department of Health and Office of Mental Health and Addiction Services both support the work of COP-RCORP. Secondly, the gradient in the background is important. The funding for this initiative comes from HRSA, as we discussed earlier, and depicted at the top of the graph. Each local community is listed on only one grant. Fairfield and Ashtabula on OU's grant, magenta in the graphic, and Seneca and Sandusky on PIRE's grant, aqua in the graphic. Because of the way that PIRE and OU braided 2 separate planning and implementation grant applications, each organization was able to facilitate a shared services agreement that includes the leadership team and the Ohio communities. The graphic shows how the funding from HRSA was braided together and then blends seamlessly in the background to support the master and local consortia. As we reach the center of the chart, we also reach the heart of the COP-RCORP initiative, local, rural, and Appalachian communities in Ohio. Seneca and Sandusky counties are in the mid-north of Ohio, Ashtabula in the northeast, and Fairfield in central Ohio. Fairfield also has a breakout box in this image, as only certain zip codes are designated as rural and thus participating in the initiative. Also included on this map is Washington County, a fifth community funded through the Shared Services Agreement during the planning phase of COP-RCORP. Washington County was a part of the Master Consortium during the planning phase of COP-RCORP, but did not participate in the implementation phase. Washington's presence was important to establishing relationships between the local communities, so they remain represented in the organizational chart, just in a slightly different way. In the very center of our organizational chart is the Master Consortium logo, shown here, as the hub of our organization. It is only through representation from all local community consortia, the spokes branching from the hub, that the Master Consortium is possible. In this logo, each community is represented through images of local scenes within the Ohio outline image. PIRE and OU facilitate the Master Consortium by convening monthly meetings, collaborating on different activities, and taking on activities that serve all communities, like the community-wide survey on stigma. For more information on the survey, visit the link on the slide. Now we can see that the organizational chart overall communicates a lot of information about COP-RCORP in a relatively small amount of space. It includes how the master and local consortia work together in a hub and spoke model. The wheel doesn't work without the individual spokes or the center holding them together. The chart also includes our sources of funding, support outside of COP-RCORP, and the methods by which PIRE and OU lead by convening. On the organizational chart page where this video is housed are a series of links where one can learn more about each part of the chart: PIRE, OU, Ashtabula, Fairfield, Seneca, Sandusky, as well as Washington counties, and the Ohio Department of Health and Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services. Thank you for investing the time to learn more about our organizational chart. The chart is freely available for download on the communities-of-practice-rcorp.com website. There's a suggested citation seen here as well. The Communities of Practice Rural Community Opioid Response Program was made possible by the grant numbers shown here from the Health Resources and Services Administration, an operating division of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This figure and this presentation are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the views of HRSA or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.